The alleged perpetrator of the murderous terrorist attack on a German Christmas market is an anti-Muslim far-right supporter of the extremist far-right AfD and a fan of, amongst others, Tommy Robinson and Elon Musk. Now, 5 people have so far been confirmed killed and more than 200 injured. The footage which I've seen of the attack is truly horrific. It shows, of course, people out with their kids for the festive period. Christmas markets are a big part of German culture. The attacker then ploughs his vehicle into them. Alas, I think we can expect the death toll to rise. Now, as we'll see, right-wing accounts who are obsessed with Muslims immediately seized with relish, I might add, on this attack. Here was a burning example, they believed, of the danger posed by Muslims. Indeed, Elon Musk, now the dominant figure in the court of President-elect Donald Trump, had posted just hours before the attack, "Only the AfD can save Germany," to emphasise the AfD being the far-right party in Germany. He then drew attention to the attack in Germany with a post captioned, "Deliberate mass murder." Well, I wonder who he thought was responsible when he posted that. So let's talk about the suspect, shall we? He is Dr. Taleb Al-Abdul Mohsen, a psychiatrist. His Twitter profile reads the following: Saudi military opposition. Germany chases female Saudi asylum seekers inside and outside Germany to destroy their lives. Germany wants to Islamize Europe. He's lived in Germany since 2006 and he's a committed atheist ex-Muslim and a dedicated supporter of the State of Israel. This is a striking point because multiple accounts, when they saw this attack, attempted to link it to Palestine. Indeed, they tweeted things like, "This is what they mean by globalize the Intifada." Now, the best part of a decade ago, he was trying to organise an initiative of self-declared ex-Muslims with the AfD. More recently, he tweeted, "The left are crazy. We need AfD to protect the police from them." Just 5 days before the attack, a right-wing American website carried an article with him headlined, "Saudi psychiatrist exposes Germany's active operation. Welcome jihadis to Islamize the West while crushing ex-Muslim refugees." Exclusive interview. This is classic far-right conspiracism of, the great replacement theory. It's this idea that elites are conspiring to replace, white Christian Europeans with Muslims, for example. Now, in response to the attack, the far-right account Radio Genoa posted a picture of former German Chancellor Angela Merkel with the caption, "She is responsible for the Islamic invasion of Europe. She must spend her time in prison." What is deeply unfortunate about this is early in the month, the attacker reposted in support of Radio Genoa when it called for Angela Merkel, again, to be imprisoned forever because of what it says is the invasion of fake Islamic asylum seekers in Germany and Europe. Now, he added to that, he reposted it with his own comments, "I fully agree, since there is no death penalty in Germany, Merkel must spend the rest of her life in prison as punishment for a criminal project to Islamize Europe. But if the death penalty is reenacted, she deserves to be killed." On Israel, he backed Israel's annexation of both the West Bank and Gaza and even suggested the annexation of Lebanon as well. Indeed, he reposted support for a greater Israel. He repeatedly declared his love, indeed, for the state of Israel. His work seems to have focused on helping people who reject Islam to leave the Middle East, and that featured in a BBC documentary. Let's see a clip.
I'm from Saudi Arabia. I'm an activist. I created a website to help people seeking asylum, especially from Saudi Arabia and the Gulf region.
And yet the far right were quick, of course, to come out and claim the suspected terrorist as evidence for their anti-Muslim bile, including far-right figures who were actually, until recently, being lauded by the suspected terrorist. For example, Geert Wilders, the leader of the far right in the Netherlands, tweeted in response to the attack, "They hate us. They despise our values. They kill us and our children. We have to stand up with perseverance and vigour, no more, never again. This is our land, our freedom, our life, and we'll defend it and never surrender. Join me and we'll win. We will win." Geert Wilders has a long track record, of course, of being anti-Muslim, of talking about Islam being the great danger. And it turns out that the suspected terrorist was a fan of Geert Wilders because of that. He had declared Geert Wilders to be the real hero. That's what he said. JD Vance, the vice president-elect, tweeted, "Who was driving the car?" Well, that's a clear dog whistle. I think we all know what JD Vance was getting at. Well, JD Vance, the answer, is a supporter of your brand of politics, in actual fact. Now, the pro-Israel activist Eve Barlow tweeted, "Say what it is, Sky," talking about Sky News, "it's an act of Islamic terrorism." Quite literally the opposite, Eve. Andrew Neil, former BBC flagship interviewer and founder of GB News before even he was too embarrassed by what that became, tweeted about how German Christmas markets seem to attract the deadly attention of Islamist scumbags. He went on to say, "But we await confirmation if Magdeburg," which is obviously where the terrorist attack happened, "is a terrorist attack. I'd be surprised if it wasn't, but as always, we await confirmation." I mean, yeah, you could have just not tweeted anything, Andrew, couldn't you? You could just wait for some details. Didn't take long for them to come out. That would have seemed the obvious thing to have done in these situations, given how inflammatory all of this is. I think you're aware of that. The generous interpretation of his tweet is he was suggesting he didn't know if it was a deliberate car attack on these German civilians, that he didn't know if it was a terrorist attack because of that. You know, was it, maybe he was suggesting, oh, maybe it was an accident or whatever, or the car was out of control. Because otherwise you're left with him suggesting that it's only a terrorist attack if the motivation is Islamism. Well, we know the suspect is anti-Muslim. So that would be a terrorist attack with the exact opposite motive. The Israeli activist Arsen Atrovsky tweets, "An Islamic terrorist from Saudi Arabia plows car into crowded Christmas market in Germany." And this is how the press report it, as if it was some automated vehicle. This is why there is zero trust in the mainstream media. And he included examples of headlines describing what had happened based on the initial reports, which didn't mention that it was an Islamist terrorist, because if they had, they would have had to have now been apologising for spreading misinformation. Nigel Farage tweets, "We have allowed people who hate us and our values into Europe. Christmas is their target." Any guesses why? Well, actually, the suspected terrorist believes the West is abandoning its values in favour of Islam. Don't think that's what you were getting at, was it, Nige? We could go on. It does remind me of the 2011 terrorist attacks in Norway, which culminated in dozens of young socialists being butchered in Utøya. When initial reports emerged, anti-Muslim bigots jubilantly seized on it. The terrorist responsible turned out to be Anders Breivik, a far-right anti-Muslim extremist. Indeed, just like the alleged suspect in Germany, that Norwegian far-right terrorist warned of the Islamization of Europe. He claimed Norwegian socialists were guilty of facilitating it through support for mass immigration, which is why he targeted them. What happened next? Well, despite the 2011 Norwegian attacks being one of the most depraved acts of terrorism in European history, it's rarely even referred to. Why? Because it can't be used to justify demonising Muslims. Expect the same to happen again. I would know. The BBC, for example, only got round to covering the facts about the suspect this afternoon. You would have had to have gone on social media to find out what the motives of the alleged suspect were and his beliefs. You couldn't get that from the public broadcaster in Britain. Well, we will keep sticking to the facts here on this channel. And speaking of the BBC, for those who haven't read it yet, do check out my investigative piece about the BBC's coverage of Israel and Palestine, based on extensive interviews with BBC journalists, published on dropsitenews.com. It's explosive stuff, I promise you. If you want me to do more of that investigative work, it takes a lot of time and resources. You can do that at patreon.com/ownjoes84. I will try not to let you down. Please like and subscribe. Do leave your thoughts, your comments as ever. Share the video, listen to the podcast. We'll have a redesign of the channel in the new year. Very exciting. And more to come, I promise. I'll speak to you in a bit.